Testing. Testing 1, 2. Is it on? Well, are you sure? Because there's no indicator signal that... Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. Hello to the land of the living. If you can hear this, then no, you're not dreaming. Your radio really is picking up a broadcast. Before we even start, I just have to say that no, you're not rescued. This isn't a government signal. There is no zombie-free paradise. And the worst, sadly, probably isn't over. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that you're not alone. The world might have gone to hell, but small pockets of humanity have survived, and we're still out here. Can you adjust the gain? I'm getting some pretty bad feedback. There you go. Okay, perfect. The purpose of this broadcast, which we've set to repeat every 6 hours, is to give hope to whoever might hear it, and to let you know that you are absolutely not alone. No matter how bad it's gotten, or no matter how many horrors you've seen, you are not alone. So don't give up. Not for a minute, not for a second. The only thing that separates us from them is hope. All right, for those of you hearing this for the first time, my name is David Kennedy, and like you, I am a survivor. I've spent the last year roaming the country trying to figure out exactly what happened to us and why. During that time, I've met hundreds of people with their own stories, personal struggles, and losses. But there are some victories. A few months into my trek, I decided to start interviewing them so that their voices would never truly be lost in the sea of endless moans that now deafen our world. Maybe their tales will inspire you. Maybe they'll make you laugh or cry. Or maybe they'll just remind you that there are other people still out there. People like you. So why am I doing this? What do I get out of it? Well, that's a fair question, and it's one that I intend to answer. Because this is my story as much as it is anyone else's. How could I ask the world to bare its soul to me if I refuse to do the same? As I stated before, my name is David Kennedy, and I am 24 years old. No, David Kennedy isn't some cool way to introduce myself like some sort of suave super spy. My first and middle name are both David. My father was David, and my grandfather was David. And to be fair, my mother named me after both men, never telling either which David came first. Growing up with the two first names was brutal as a kid. Man. It earned me both merciless teasing and the nickname Double D. I initially tried to fight it, but as childhood nicknames do, it stuck. So I eventually just embraced it. Oddly enough, it was probably that name that saved my life. It was because of it that I always kept fit and in shape. You don't want to be a fat kid with a pair of sweaty man boobs and the nickname Double D, you know. So when the outbreak went full swing, I was in good enough shape to survive it. It's like that prophetic movie of old stated, rule number 1, cardio. Before the world officially ended, I was a college student, majoring, as you might have guessed by now, in journalism. Who knows, if the world ever recovers from this, maybe I'll be remembered as the last real reporter. And that's a pretty big if. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's pretty bad out there. So now you know who I am and that you're not alone. God, I can't stress that enough. You're probably wondering what the hell actually happened. Well, sadly, there is no real official explanation, at least not one that I've ever heard from a credible source. The only thing that we could do was sort of assemble a timeline from old media clips and recordings that were made right before everything went to shit. And I can tell you that, look, I can't say that what we put together is right or even all that accurate, and I can't promise. Let me just tell you that it isn't biased, and that we've made it with the intent to shine as much light into the darkness as humanly possible. I think the world deserves to hear the truth, and that's what we intend to bring you. I think it's safe by now to admit that we are dealing with zombies. Not walkers, roamers, biters, shufflers, or any of the other names that the old television shows would just throw out to avoid saying the Z word, but actual, I can't believe they're real zombies. Being a college student, I find myself naturally gravitating towards conspiracy theories and shadowy plots, so we can't honestly ever say when all of this actually started. Government and media cover-ups have happened in the past, and I have absolutely no doubt that they happened during the initial outbreak. Still, the first real segment that we could find came from a local news channel out of Dallas, Texas, and we think this may be the earliest clue to what actually went down. This is what we have.
With the Dow Jones Industrial Average shattering industry records and closing well over 15,000 today, that number comes from a complicated formula based on 30 stocks that are part of the Dow Jones Average. The higher the number, the higher the value of those stocks, and there's no need to speculate which stocks in particular help boost those numbers today. Am I right, Cindy?
Indeed you are, Ron. Karama Pharmaceuticals, the newly emerging biotech company with roots in Italy, is turning heads and raising brows as it swiftly becomes an international leader of both medical and therapeutic goods right here in the United States. Their spokesperson, Jana Kirkpatrick, has been credited with much of the company's climb, with her claim that they are only a few trails away from actually curing everything from swine flu to the common cold.
Those are some pretty bold statements.
True, but as Karama Pharmaceuticals has filed over 87 patents in the last year alone, the experts think that they might really be onto something.
87 patents? Is that a lot?
Well, it sure seems like a lot to me, but whatever they're doing, they must be doing it right because their stock has gone up in value over 500% since hitting the markets a little over 2 years ago.
Makes me wish that I'd gotten in on that. But I will tell you what I did not miss out on last night's game. Did you see it?
I didn't. Believe it or not, I was stuck smack dab in the middle of that massive traffic jam that Bob mentioned earlier. I sat on the Spencer Street Bridge for over 4 hours.
4 hours? Yikes. Well, you missed one heck of a game. Our very own Razors went head-to-head against the Coyotes last night, and it was nothing short of brutal. We'll have a full recap of the game and the heated words that were exchanged between the two coaches that may have them both in hot water. Right after these words from our sponsors.
All right. It might not sound like much, but that news report gives us the name Karama Pharmaceuticals. If you'd never heard of them, they were all over the news right before, well, the news stopped. They were working on some miracle cure that was going to revolutionize the world. The traffic jam she mentioned was later attributed to some homeless drug addict high on bath salts, but is now arguably the first reported surfacing of a zombie attack. Oh, and fun fact, I lost $50 on that game. And to tell you the truth, we almost missed it. There's still a bit of argument with some of the other survivors on whether or not that we can include this as evidence, and there are no official tie-ins to the outbreak or Karama Pharmaceuticals, but the coincidence of the discovery coming from Italy and the mention of the disease becoming the cure was pretty hard to ignore. Again, while we can't prove anything by playing this, we felt that it was potentially too important to leave out.
Welcome back to The Piercing Truth with me, Oliver Pierce. If you're just tuning in, we're here with a very special guest, Dr. Robert Carver, discussing his new and some would say even controversial book, An Island of Death, The History of Poveglia. It's currently enjoying a top spot on the New York Times top 10 list, and I suspect, given its contents, it may be there for a while. Dr. Carver, once again, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here, Oliver.
Now, Dr. Carver, as we were discussing before the break, your archaeological